My mother is an addict. I heard this many times when I was young, but I never really understood what it meant until I got a little older. She fell in and out of my life due to her drug and alcohol use, and her actions deeply affected me, but they also led me to understand addiction from my personal experience. While some claim that addiction is a choice, it is in fact a mental disease. Coming to understand this allowed me to come to terms with the pain I faced growing up. Her story begins before I can remember, so I'll just talk about what I know. I remember my mother early on as a strong and fiercely independent woman, but my view of her came to change. It was my 11th birthday when I experienced my first great hurt at the hands of my mother. I vividly recall the pair of shoes I wore that day, my first pair of heels. They were black with white polka dots. Normally I walked home, but this was my birthday, and my mom was picking me up to take me to the zoo. The bell rang, and I waited for her. It seemed like hours, but time always feels longer when we're kids. I tried calling her many times, but she didn't answer, so I began to walk home in my polka dot heels. I got home from my walk with disappointment weighing heavily on my shoulders, but I still had hope my day would turn around. Then I found her. She was asleep in the dark, surrounded by beer bottles. My freshly 11 self was heartbroken. Maybe it wasn't such a big deal, but it was to me, and things continued to escalate after this day. There are a series of events that ring out in my mind when I think about this time. The day my mom dumped her beer on my oldest sister's hot dog. The day she kicked the door in when my sisters and I hid from her drunken rage. The day she hit my grandfather, her father, in the face. But despite everything she did, I was still clinging to the memories of the loving woman I remembered. In the years following, she lived away from us, but I continued to visit her from time to time. Most of the times I saw her, she was always very happy to see me. For a time, she lived on a boat. But the boat had leaks, so she had to keep it on the land. But she would always talk about the one day when she would take me out on the water. She was full of one-day ideas. The visit I recall in the greatest detail was a time she was living at a house on a hill in the woods. My dad had dropped me off to spend the weekend, and her and I decided to make tortilla chips while she was drinking whiskey right out of the bottle. This came to be the first time I swore at one of my parents, and ended in her harassing me until I called my dad to come get me. But far from over, I want to tell you how this story looks today. My mother has been living homelessly in California for over 5 years, and I often think about how I could help her, or what I could have done differently to stop her path. But the most important thing I've come to learn about addiction is that the person has to want help in order to get it. The first step in the 12-step method to recovery is accepting that one is powerless over addiction. There have been many attempts to get her help, but my mother's denial continues to be her greatest downfall. As well, I've learned that addicts are born the way they are. Of course, using drugs or alcohol is a choice, but addiction is a disease that is passed down through generations. In retrospect, I can see that my mom was struggling with this disease her entire life. I only saw a fraction of how it affected her. She felt the force of her addiction from the moment she began to use any substances. And while I could choose to hate her for leaving us, her family, I instead choose to accept that she is unwell and hold out hope for her one day. No one blames someone who is schizophrenic for hearing voices. An addiction is a mental disorder just the same. She is responsible for her actions, but her disease has had a part in the choices she made and continues to make. To this day, I hope that she gets the mental clarity she needs to seek out the help that she desperately needs. So in conclusion, my mother hurt me deeply as a child, but my knowledge of addiction now helps me to understand what I experienced. I hold on to the hope that I will see that independent woman I knew free from the control of this disease. So, to anyone with a loved one suffering from this disease, my heart goes out to you. Hold on to your hope. To anyone with this disease, your loved ones are here for you when you're ready to get the help you need. If I could say one thing to my mom, it would be, I love you and I forgive you. I find peace knowing there is always hope for addicts, all of them, so long as they are willing to accept that they are powerless and seek out the help that they need. Thank you.